Hi, this is Estelle Erasmus, your host for Freelance Writing Direct. In this short, soundbite-filled podcast, I'll cover everything the freelance and creative writer and author needs to do to move forward with their writing, their creativity, and their career. Through conversations with guests, we'll cover tips, tricks, and actionable strategies. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes and Spotify. Welcome, everybody. It's Estelle Erasmus for Freelance Writing Direct. And I'm so happy to have Zibby Owens as my guest today. Hi, Zibby.
Hi, Estelle. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. And the title of today's episode is Zibby Owens is Upending the Publishing World with her books, company, and vision. And we have a lot to talk about. So I want to give you a little bit of info on Zibby if you don't already know who she is. Zibby Owens is an author, award-winning podcaster, entrepreneur, and CEO. Owens founded Zibby Media, a privately held media company, in 2018 with her award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. The company has since grown to include the publishing house, Zibby Books, the magazine, Zibby Mag, the podcast network, Zibby Audio, the education platform, Zibby Classes, and community events like retreats, a book club, and a writing community. She was celebrated as New York's most powerful bookfluencer by New York Magazine. Owens is a regular contributor to Good Morning America and other broadcast outlets. She is the author of the memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, the children's book, Princess Charming, and the editor of 2 anthologies. Owens is a graduate of Yale University and Harvard Business School. She lives in New York with her husband, Kyle Owens of Morning Moon Productions, and her 4 children. Follow her on Instagram at Zibby Owens. So, Zibby, I mean, we met over 3 years ago. It was, I think, at the very beginning of the pandemic. And I've been a longtime member of the American Society of Journalists and Authors and have run the conference for them. And I do a lot of panels at conferences. And so I did a parenting panel, and I had heard about you, and I think I had read the article about you being a bookfluencer. And so I contacted you, and you graciously agreed to do the panel. And that's how we met, like right kind of in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me to that.
You were so informative and generous with your information and advice. And then when I got my book deal in Publishers Marketplace for writing that gets noticed, find your voice, become a better storyteller, get published, you graciously sent me a note congratulating me. So thank you very much for that.
I get so excited. I read Publishers Marketplace every day. And now I feel like I have so many people I know who get books or new books or first books or whatever. And I get so excited. And sometimes they haven't even seen the announcement yet because I usually read it right away.
Congratulations on your new publishing company and also your own books, Princess Charming and your memoir, Bookends. And so with your publishing company, you also have a bookstore that recently opened in Santa Monica, all your podcasts, and you've gone through such an evolution over the years. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey to getting to have an actual publishing company, and also what drives you, because you're so prolific in so many ways?
Well, thank you. I think I've always been driven my whole life in whatever I'm doing. It used to be school, 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 right? I had schedules of when I was going to study which subject and, crossing, like I read every page, I did every assignment. I've just always been very driven by nature. That's just the kind of person I am. And I have a lot of energy and I don't need that much sleep. I need to catch up occasionally, but I can go and go and go until I crash. And the crashing is like once a month or so. So, that's just how I'm wired. And I guess I'm lucky, but also unlucky because when I'm not doing enough, I get very down. If I'm not busy enough, is when I'm most at risk for like feeling depressed or whatever, right? Because I need to be really busy to be happy, which take that for what it's worth. But at least I realize now that I'm 46, I've realized this about myself. But anyway, the evolution of starting an actual publishing company, none of this stuff. And I'm glad that when we were chatting before, you said you've been working really hard for a long time, because some people see what has happened today and they're like, wow, that happened out of nowhere. And I'm like, it did not happen out of nowhere. I have worked nonstop for 5 straight years, not 5 days, not 5 months, like 5 years. That's a lot of time. I know in the grand scheme of life, it might not feel like that long, but even percentage wise, right? 5 years out of 46 is a lot of time that I've been working on this. So what happened was, after I did so many podcasts on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and talked to so many people and then got to know people who were authors socially, and I had like a salon here for a little while where I would have author events all the time and just was sort of more in the flow of information. And I had never worked in publishing. I just kept hearing more and more, and everybody seemed so defeatist about it. Oh, the publishing industry it's just never going to change. It's just, and after a while I was like, well, come on. Like, why? Why not? Every other industry changes. And I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I worked in startups and I worked in advertising, and I worked on the Kodak account in 1990, I don't know, 1996 or something, when Kodak was like untouchable. And I've seen what happened with all the big banks like Lehman Brothers, and like, nobody is untouchable. Like, there is nothing that can't change. So I come at this from sort of a different approach, which is, well, what can change and why not try? Why is this the only industry that can't be changed? So I started thinking about it and wondering how I would do it, or could I be the one to do something, which seemed ridiculous to even think about. Like, who am I? But it seemed like no one else was stepping up. So, or they were in different ways. And I shouldn't say that. I mean, and frankly, I love what all the publishing companies are doing and the books they're putting out. I have so much respect. I know how hard they're all working. It's just, there was something with the system itself that made change very difficult. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Why don't I start with some small changes? And then could I even do it? And I started getting more and more information. Everything I start, I've actually been thinking about for a very long time and processing and researching, maybe not in the most analytical manner. Like, I don't sit down and say, I'm going to research a publishing company. Like, I get information in different ways. And and then until all of a sudden I'm like, it just comes out, like all the ingredients. Like, I'm like a slow cooker. Like, you just keep putting stuff in, and then 1 minute, ding, it's ready, and there I go. So I started doing research. And another thing I always do is like try to work with really smart people who know what they're doing. So I worked at first with Lee Newman, who I knew had started Catapult. And so she would know what it was like to start a publishing company. And when I first approached her to do it, it was the beginning of the pandemic. And she's like, are you crazy? Like, we're both at home with our kids. Like, it was nuts. But she did agree to be an editor if I started this fellowship program. So I tested out, did I like working with editors? Did I like working with authors on big scale projects? And I knew I liked working with them on small scale projects because I had started this magazine online and loved editing pieces, and I had done the anthologies. So I knew I loved that. But would I love bigger works? I wasn't sure. So I tried it. I got 4 authors who were fellows, and then Lee and another editor worked on it for a year. And it was great, but I still wanted more. Like, that wasn't enough, and it didn't solve any of the problems. And then, so I just kept gathering more information, and then Lee was ready to join, and I did the whole presentation I was like, no, I know exactly. I have the whole thing. And I just like, in Canva, like made this whole presentation and sent it to her. She's like, are you kidding me? That just like came out of your brain. I was like, well, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I just hadn't written down. So that's really how it started. And then we, found our way through. We got a distributor. We paired up very early with Anne Massetti, which was another wonderful, she's just absolutely amazing and taught us so much, taught me in particular so much. And now it's, we're learning on the fly. We're learning as we go. And it's been great.
what I am seeing about your company is that you are creating a sense of community and a place where writers feel supported on an organic level. And I think that speaks to the way that you think. And also it's subjective because you were looking for that kind of support, I would imagine, for a long time. And so you did what I like to say that futurists, like, Faith Popcorn, she's somebody I interviewed back in my traditional magazine editor days. I mean, you look at what is and see what can be and see how it makes sense. And like you said, you're a slow cooker, but you get all that information, then you synthesize it. You're really moving forward in a different way. And so tell me a little bit about that, like what you feel that writers need and why that is something that was just had to be part of what you're doing.
One of the problems with publishing, which I can't solve, is no one knows which books will make it big, which books won't. It's up to consumer preference. I mean, I feel like I can tell what a good book is. And that's another thing I think I do well, and I didn't realize this until I started doing it, but I can usually tell if a book is going to resonate with people if it resonates with me. I'm a good judge. So I find that a lot of the books that become bestsellers, when I read them early, I'm like, this is going to make it big, and then it does. So that sometimes not, but usually. But what I can do as a publisher is I can make sure that no matter what happens to the book when it's out in the marketplace, the author feels like we've given it our best shot and that they feel supported because we are giving it our best shot. We are going above and beyond for every book. And even Anne the other day was like, what we're doing here is what would be done for John Grisham, you know what I mean? But why shouldn't everybody be treated like John Grisham? Now, at the end of the day, this business has to make money at some point. So we need something to really break out at some point. But I think it will, because people feel empowered and the writers feel valued and empowered, and together they feel like a powerful group, and that's how change starts getting made. I'm not doing it the heavy lifting. I'm putting it out there in the world and letting them take the ball and run with it. So we did this retreat at the beginning, and people on my team were like, this is crazy. We shouldn't be spending all this money so early on and taking all the authors and all the team away for the weekend. Basically, it wasn't even a weekend. I think it was two days in the middle of the week. We went up to this resort called Innis and did a whole programming and game night and all this stuff. And I was like, trust me, this is what we need to do. It doesn't have a dollar value, just like the retreats I'm doing. Okay, each retreat is not a moneymaker, but I'm telling you, this is essential to what we're all about. It's about bringing people together and community, and books are the centerpiece of it all. But the bigger thing is the connection around the books. But by connecting around books, we're gathering people with a common interest, which is reading, and smart women. And it's like a self-selecting audience, people who love to read. It's a great audience. I'm someone who loves to read. So I want to be with people who could talk about books all day. So, I mean, and there are other things tactically, and I'm not precious about it. I'm on the phone with the authors all the time, or I'll email them. I'm reading everything. We're all in it together. It's a startup, and we're all doing everything. So it's fun.
Hi, this is Estelle Erasmus, your host, and I'm the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which is available for pre-order from New World Library. And if you send me a receipt showing that you have ordered the book, I am happy to send you my 10 best writing tips. Email me at freelancewritingdirect@gmail.com, and I can't wait for you to read the book. You have quite an education pedigree, Yale and Harvard. So you have that business acumen, but you also have a very relatable quality. So what are you looking for in terms of books?
We publish 12 books a year, and that speaks to wanting to pay attention to each book. So each book gets a month where they are, obviously we're still paying attention to the other books, but it's like having a kid, and it's that kid's performance, right? You still have the other kids, but give that kid just 1 minute, okay? Would you? That's how it is. We are looking for 1 book a month, and contemporary fiction and memoir only. So no historical anything, no self-help, nothing like that. Just strict memoir and fiction, not fantasy, not romance, no sci-fi, no fantasy, more like telling it like it is, like stuff that's going on in the world now that you can relate to. We want to hear like stories, whether it's actually things that happened or things that could have happened, but they're fiction. There won't be any books with like monsters jumping out or anything like that. So our hope is that our books help people live better lives through storytelling, not through self-help or anything like that. But and a lot of them end up having to do with getting through grief or reinventing yourself or figuring out what to do with your life or finding meaning, all these sort of bigger questions that most people share. The four things we look for in particular are a strong sense of voice, a strong sense of place, propulsive narratives, and beautiful writing. And we have our books scheduled through the end of 2024 already, so we're acquiring now for 2025. It's a self-selecting audience again, because you have to want to be publishing in a community environment. Not to say every day is like kumbaya and like, we're all like sitting around with our arms around each other, but if you are like more of a lone wolf operator, and that's totally fine, this is probably not the house for you. This is more like a home.
I love that you're so clear on what you're looking for, because that really helps the writer figure it out. Can you share actionable tips on how writers can best tell a compelling story?
Yeah, I actually just finished my novel, and that's coming out next April. It's called Blank. So I've had a lot of time to mull on this subject. To tell a compelling story, if you're making one up or if you already have the story. I mean, part of it is in the writing and the ability to draw someone in and keep their attention the way you would if you were like sitting next to them at a dinner party. I mean, it has to be an interesting story and you have to tell it well. I mean, I know that sounds so obvious, but there has to be something that hasn't been told 8 million times. Or if it has, then you're coming at it in a new angle. Maybe the form or the structure is different. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there just has to be something that's like, huh, that's interesting. So, but telling a good story, I mean, I think everybody needs to make sure they're a good writer. I know that sounds silly, and try to get as much experience and editing help as possible, especially before submitting. I don't know about other big publishers, but we have a small team and we can't spend I mean, we do spend if really a lot of time, which is how we've learned this, but a manuscript coming in that's like ready to go, that's like a dream, right? Oh my gosh, we barely have to do anything on this one. Like, in fact, we even like bought a book that was published already in Australia that's great, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing, let's just do this. So I would say make sure your story is interesting. If you're sitting next to someone at a dinner party and you start telling the story that's like the main story in your novel or in your memoir, and their eyes start wandering and looking around and they check their watch, like, don't write a whole book about it.
Right. Good advice. So what's coming up next for you?
We're doing more events. We have 3 more retreats this year. We're just now booking one in California. We're going to do one a little north of Los Angeles in Santa Barbara wine country, September 23rd, that weekend. And that should be really fun. We have a book called Wine People coming out. So that's sort of the inspiration for that event. We're going to do one in Miami at the end of the Miami Book Fair. And that'll be really fun. And then we're going to do a little something in the Hamptons this summer, maybe more like a day pass, because I feel like people can get out there for the day, or I don't know. It's so hard to find hotels that are reasonably priced out there. So maybe people who are out there, people who want to come and stay with friends, that'll be more like a one night thing midweek. But we have a lunch and a event, and I'm going to do a dinner of some sort. So that should be fun. So those are the events that are coming up. We also have a lot of classes that are launching all the time. We have a new one about to start with Wendy Aarons about comedy writing, and that should be great. I actually would really like to take that myself, but I don't have time. I continue to do my podcast every single day, which I'm getting really tired, but I might have to reassess and go to 5 days. I don't know. But anyway, it's been daily since March of 2020, and I hate to slow it down, but that's still coming out. We have, as I said, one book a month. We also offer subscriptions, so you could just get it delivered to your door. You can go to zibbybooks.com and learn about that. We have the magazine, zibbymag.com, and we have one essay a week by an author. time to a holiday or something, on the calendar. Yeah, time to something on the calendar. I mean, we recently had an essay time to the equinox because that's like all we could think of. And so, but that's great. We have a newsletter for that comes out every week with the latest content. But you could always go to zippymag.com, but definitely sign up for that newsletter. We have a writing community. They like take trips on their own too. And we have a book club. So I have Zibby's virtual book club, which meets now twice a month online. And we're starting chapters of that everywhere. So, and this morning on the way back, I know this sounds ridiculous, but this is how things happen. On the way back from dropping my kids at school, like I feel like I've like gained all this weight and like my stomach has like become like, an extra limb on my body all of a sudden. And I was literally sitting there being like, what does everybody else do about their stomachs? Like, oh my God, I need like some sort of brace. Maybe I could get like a back brace and just like put it around my front or something. And, so, and I was like, why is there no magazine for tips like that? Those are the tips I need. Like where to buy like great looking long sleeve dresses and like, sweat wicking jammies for all my sweating and like, all these things. So anyway, so I came up with this idea to start a magazine. We have Zibby Mag. So this is called SAG, a Zibby Mag about the indignities of aging. I like designed the whole cover this morning. And anyway, I'm going to post it on Instagram today. And then I'm going to like get the content and start putting it out once a month.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, there's definitely a readership out there who's very interested in anti-aging. Is there anything that we covered a lot? Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to mention about yourself, about your husband, about your kids, about
yes, my husband has a movie coming out tomorrow. I'm so excited for him. It's called Wildflower, and I don't know when this is going to air, but I assume later than tomorrow because starting Monday, it will be on demand. It'll be on video on demand and also Apple, iTunes, all that. And then in June, it will be on Hulu as well. But it's basically going to be out everywhere. It'll be on airplanes. Anyway, he worked on it over the pandemic. They have this amazing cast, Brad Garrett and Alessandra Daddario, and it's just amazing.
That's so exciting, Zibby. And I'll put in the show notes where all the information where people can find you on social media and your website and anything else you want to include and links to your books and to your author's books. And I thank you so much for being my guest today. It was really terrific to speak with you, to get the bird's eye view from Zibby herself about her company that's upending the publishing world in a very good way. So thanks again, Zibby.
Thank you for having me.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. And if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or two or doing an episode takeover, please email me at freelancewritingdirect@gmail.com. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.